I'm Ty Hernandez.
And I'm Matt McClure, and this is Currents. Last-minute wranglings over a controversial bill to lift the statute of limitations on sex abuse cases.
The scales of justice really are tipped against the favor of the church or any other institution.
Does Lino Rullis catch more than he's bargained for?
Come on, go, Lil. Don't give up. You're the man. 2.
And reaching young people without using push-ups.
If we want to reach them, we really have to do either the Facebook thing or the instant messaging.
Thanks for joining us. One of the most controversial and divisive bills in the state legislature could come up for a vote any day now. It's the so-called Markey bill, sponsored by Queens Assemblywoman Margaret Markey. It would lift the statute of limitations on sexual abuse claims for 1 year.
The Catholic Diocese of New York has long been opposed to the legislation. Yesterday I spoke with Father Kieran Harrington, the Vicar for Government Affairs and Public Policy for the Brooklyn Diocese. Father Harrington, we're talking about the Markey bill, and I'm going to try to, in a nutshell, say it does 2 things. One, allows child abuse victims, more time to come forward with their claims from the age of 23. It would change it to the age of 28. Right. The second part is what has become the controversial part. It says that for 1 year, the statute of limitations for civil suits would be eliminated, first for just private institutions, now for public and private. So people have 1 year to come forward if they're 53 or younger and say, I was abused. Why has the church been so vocal in opposition? It seems straightforward. The Catholic Church is not mentioned a single time in the bill.
Well, first off, Ty, it's really important to look at the number of factors. Marge has only recently introduced an amendment that would include public institutions. After months of telling everybody that her bill originally included public institutions, she's only now amended her legislation after 3 attempts to include public institutions, and she does so in an uneven fashion. So she doesn't include public schools in the same way, public institutions in the same way that she includes private institutions. So there's immediately a disparity in the bill.
Even if that is unfair, what is wrong with allowing people to come forward, giving them time to say, this happened to me and I want amends made?
I think the issue there is that, from our perspective, is that the church has already, if people come forward, seeks to make amends for any harm doing, without any question as to whether it really happened or not. If a person comes forward and says that they were abused, the therapeutic and pastoral services of the diocese are made available to them. In other words, we're not asking questions if this really happened or not. If you claim that it happened, we'll make these services available to you. So the first part is that we do seek to make amends for when there are claims of abuse. The second part about it is the statute of limitations is grounded in the rule of law. What's the reason for it? The reason for statute of limitations, not just in this case but in all matters, is that over time evidence gets lost, memories fade, and people die. And so there's an enormous liability on the part of the church here, and an enormous transfer of wealth that potentially can take place, as has happened in California, where trial lawyers make out like bandits.
Let me stop you here. You say liability. Is this in essence the problem, that the church would be liable for potentially, Bishop DiMarzio had said, $1 billion?
Well, I mean, the Diocese of Brooklyn could be liable of upwards of $500 million. But the issue is not that, Ty. I mean, consistently we have been arguing that the issue of the retrospective repeal of statute of limitations is a societal problem and had to be dealt with in a way that was comprehensive. So from the beginning we have advocated that all parties, Catholic, non-Catholic, private, public, all parties be brought into this discussion. Only now at the last hour has Marge brought all parties, after repeatedly denying the fact that all parties would be brought in, has she now brought all parties to the table.
Let me just say the bishop has said that the one problem he has with the Markey bill, which is why he supports an alternative bill, is the 1 year statute of limitations.
Absolutely.
It's not present in the other bill that he does support.
That's right.
So let's talk about that for a moment. $500 million is the estimate. Is that an acknowledgement on the part of the diocese that wrongdoing occurred?
No, I mean, the reason for that estimate is if you look at basic numbers of how many people potentially have been abused, right? So let's say potentially 200 people have been abused in the Diocese of Brooklyn, historically. If you take a look at the California settlements, it's about $2 million a case. that's a $400 million settlement, not even accepting the fact that other people might come forward. Now, here's the challenge with that, Ty, is that not all that abuse is of the same category, of the same sort of severity. It's very difficult to say, you know, what actually happened in all of these cases, and who are the people who profit. You know, it's important to note this, is that 40% of these settlements go into the pockets of trial lawyers. So what we're saying is that in a person's parish, that the people who are sitting in the pews of whatever parish, they're paying, the cost is being transferred for them to a trial lawyer. Is this putting the church
in an awkward position to say what you're in essence saying, that this may cost too much in terms of the diocese? You have acknowledged schools may need to close, churches may need to close, but is it an awkward position to take a position on a bill as well?
We take positions on legislation and public policy matters all the time. The fact of the matter is that this bill was targeted towards the Catholic Church. There's no question. If you read the debate on the floor of the Assembly last June 11th, there is no question that the target of this legislation was the Catholic Church. It was only because we vigorously...
Why do you say that?
If you read the debate, they've clearly pointed out that the target was the Catholic Church. Marcy Hamilton repeatedly claims that the church should sell its property to pay for these.
What is the role of government then, if they say there are victims out there who have not been able to, in a legal way, air their grievance? You're saying the alternative is to go to the church, back to the church, and receive counseling, but
no, that's not what I'm saying.
You know, an alleged victim of sexual abuse would not necessarily want to do that. They may in fact say, hey, I was hurt, I want the person who hurt me to be punished, or the institution.
But there's a scale of justice here, right? And that when there's a claim made, an allegation made, there has to be the opportunity to defend against an allegation. I mean, you would agree with that. Most people would agree that if a claim is made, there has to be the opportunity to defend against that allegation. One of the ways in which the scales of justice are balanced is to say that over time, it's clear that evidence gets lost. Documents are lost.
Well, there would be this isn't automatic. There would be a trial.
No, but the fact is...
There would be a court hearing, a judge.
No, that's not true. I mean, the fact of the matter is that what you're dealing with is class action suits. You're not dealing with one person making one claim against one person. You're dealing with class action suits with multiple numbers of people who've been abused.
And you're saying the Catholic Church would not get justice in the court of law in a class action suit?
You wouldn't be able to, and because you'd be dealing with so many people coming forward. The only thing that's necessary is a certification from a mental health provider, which is any single person who hangs up a shingle and says that they're a mental health provider, say the person was a victim. I mean, the scales of justice really are tipped against the favor of the church or any other institution.
That was Father Kieran Harrington, and we will let you know the results of the vote if and when it happens.
When Currents returns, today's headlines and much more. Stay with us.
And Lino Rullis has met his match. Welcome back to Currents. I'm Ty Hernandez.
And I'm Matt McClure. Topping today's headlines, a New York businessman pleaded guilty in a Ponzi scheme targeting Catholics. Richard Piccoli admitted to running the scheme for more than 2 decades and advertising mainly in Catholic publications. Authorities say he may have conned at least $17 million from investors.
The director of the Vatican's newspaper has introduced a new book defending Pope Pius XII. The author contends that the late Pope's reputation was damaged by an orchestrated Soviet campaign after his death.
In other news, from the Vatican, officials are already tapping into the internet to keep people informed about the next World Youth Day 2 years from now. Rome Reports has details.
Those who are looking for information on World Youth Day 2011 can now find it online by way of social networking. Madrid 2011 just announced its presence on the social networking site Twitter, a virtual forum where users can write and read short messages on certain topics. World Youth Day's digital presence is also felt on Facebook and the Spanish website Twenty. Madrid will play host to World Youth Day for 1 week in August of 2011, where more than 1 million people are expected to attend. The internet has become a tool to keep up with the preparations and keep track of new developments.
And coming up later, we'll talk with a couple of local youth leaders using new technology to connect with young Catholics.
Coming up later, pumped up and preaching the gospel.
If we're weak, we're like Jesus, Lino. Remember that, man.
And you're weak.
If we're weak, we're like all the saints.
Yesterday, we met a man who is getting people pumped up about their faith, and today he is Lino Rullis Catch of the Day.
Justin Fatica is this amazing youth minister. He's getting teenagers excited about their faith with an energy and vitality like you've never seen before. He's launched a ministry called Hard as Nails. He's written a book about it, and HBO even did a documentary on him and his life. I wanted to meet this guy for myself, and I caught up with Justin on his home turf, the gym. All right, so most people working out do it for your own personal gain.
Yeah.
But what do you mean you do workouts for others? You're praying for others?
Yeah, man. You know, like, my wife, I travel a lot. I better be praying for her.
So how long have you been working out for? Your whole life?
No, I wasn't into working out until about 21, 22.
How old are you now?
30.
I'm 37. I started working out about 10 minutes ago.
You're a character.
You don't strike me as a very passionate person. No, seriously, where does all this passion come from? Be honest now, where does the passion come from?
You know, with what's going on in our culture, if we're not passionate about love, passionate about, you know, young people, passionate about giving people hope, then if we have a problem with young people, if any adult out there says, oh man, the youth these days, what problems? Well, who are the business leaders that created the problems? The kids didn't create the problems. So really on my heart of hearts is these young people. We need to be a generation of hope and love and of faith.
Are you putting these on for you, Justin?
Yeah.
This isn't going to be for me.
Why not, man?
Well, because I can't, you know, what are you talking about? If I get a pickup truck, maybe I can tow it, but I'm not going to be able to pick it up. I'll try to spot you, but I'll just be watching.
All right, you spot me, man.
Camera guy's spotting you too, for that matter. We're all spotting you.
Remember this, Lino. We need a lot of people spotting us.
Where did this all start? Where did this all come from? This whole Hard as Nails Justin thing, where did this all come from?
It's not just me, you know, that's the big thing I don't want it to become about. If it's about me, then what I'm doing is worthless. I just saw the culture, and I just saw what was going on. I was like, we need to be real here. And we need something attractive. We need something different. We need something exciting. And is it exciting? Is it different? I don't know. You know, you tell me. But it's reaching out. It's working.
You're strong in the faith. You're strong with these weights. I'm weak. Now you got to spot me spiritually and probably physically, all right?
No, first of all, I'm probably weaker than you both ways.
I wish. No offense.
Yeah, you're probably stronger than me in a lot of other ways. Remember, the weak are strong, the strong are weak, Lino. Come on. Come on, go, Lil. Don't give up. You're the man. 2. Jesus' story is what it's about. St. Paul's story. You go down the list in the history, and St. Justin the Martyr, his story. Is his story great because he's like, I'm the man, oh, I'm jacked, you know what I mean? Like, right? I got veins popping out, you know, like, is that why his story's great? No. His story's great because he was a martyr. You know, his story's great because he got dissed. Hard as Nails has been one of the bigger challenges of my life. Misrepresented, misused, mistreated, and you know, but it's been the greatest experience in my life. Except for having kids and my wife and my
this
family.
interview, just hanging out
like this. Of course, Lino! If we're weak, we're like Jesus, Lino. Remember that, man.
And you're weak.
If we're weak, we're like all the saints. If we're weak, we're like all the people that we're supposed to act like. Why is everybody trying to act so tough? Why is everybody trying to act so strong?
Because I'd rather look like you than me. Little help? Hey, okay, now we're getting where we need to be.
Come on, Lino, you gotta admit, I'm the top 10 jerkiest Christians in the country.
Especially if you keep hitting me like that, you're number 1. We don't even have to vote.
You're like the nicest guy. I want to be like you.
Here's the problem. My nose is the biggest thing in this ring, so I'm just afraid of what
Hey, that's the Italian thing, you know what I mean?
This, not this. What's going on in our society? What are you and I and everybody else dealing with? Are we missing God's love? What are we missing in our lives that we need more than anything?
You know, authenticity. When are we going to start being okay with each other? When are we going to start looking at our dad who left us and go, he has a story too. Maybe I should reach out and love him because he ain't God. When are we going to start realizing that our mom, who was 19 and got pregnant, and we're judging her all these years and we didn't get this and get that. You know what? She was 19 and kept the baby. When we're going to start realizing that there are a lot of people out there that need to be respected and honored more than they're being. And all we're doing is looking at them as objects or as weak, just because when we look in the mirror, that's what we see. You know, when we realize and admit the real person we are, we can love others no matter what. And if I die tomorrow, so what? I had a book, hard as nails, you know. So what? I had a movie on my life. But hopefully when I die, people walk by my casket and go, you know what? He wasn't perfect, that's for sure, that guy. But you know what? He loved me no matter what. And that's my goal. You know, that's what it's all about.
Justin Fatica there. For more on him, you can check out the Hard as Nails website at hanm.org.
Coming up, we'll talk to a couple of local youth ministers who aren't as physically demanding as Justin. As you just saw, some in the church are turning to unique and creative ways to reach young people.
Recently, I sat down to talk with two youth ministers to find out how they are trying to keep teenagers interested in their faith. And we're so happy to be joined now by a couple of folks who really do know a lot about the youth of the church and how the church is trying to reach out to the youth and keep them involved in the Catholic Church. Marilyn Santos is the coordinator for adolescent and young adult faith formation for the Diocese of Brooklyn. And Mike Hayes is author of a book called Googling God, which is about the faith of people in their 20s, also does a blog by the same name, Googling God. So that really kind of brings it home, I guess, for a lot of young people because, you know, the technology is such a huge part of everyone's daily life. A recent Pew study actually found that 68% of people who are identify themselves as Catholic when they're younger, when they're a child or when they're in the youth age, teenagers, 68% of them actually remain Catholic through adulthood. Is that a pretty accurate number, you think, Mike?
I think it's a pretty accurate number that people who are raised Catholic tend to stay Catholic. I mean, it's pretty much that simple. How involved they are in the Catholic Church might be a whole other, you know, cup of tea, if you would.
The cafeteria Catholic.
Exactly. Or not even that. I mean, most young people don't even necessarily happen to have a problem with the church or anything like that. It's just not really part of their lives. Like in my book, I call them eclipsed Catholics. Like there are people who, you know, might have 2 or 3 kids, or they might have a lot of different activities in their own lives, and they eclipse their need for spirituality or their need for the church. So there's just a lot of things going on, and church is one more thing to add to the to-do list.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, folks are so busy now. I mean, you know, you look at your daily life, and with the technology comes staying connected to everyone, everywhere, 24 hours a day. You know, and then it just adds another layer of busyness in amongst everything else that we have going on. Marilyn, what are some of the challenges that youth face today in staying involved with the church?
Well, I would say one of the #1 challenges is that they have a lot of choices. There's not just technology, but there's a lot out there for them to do. Our young people are a lot more independent at a lot much earlier age than in perhaps even our generations. Which is not so long ago, I hope. But they, and the pressure, there's a lot of pressures on them, and a lot of stress for them to succeed and to be independent. So it's not just the easiest choice to make to go to my Friday night parish youth group. Therefore, it's our challenge to find other ways to connect with them, and certainly technology is a big piece of it. Recently, we did some informal surveys, and most adolescents or teenagers no longer bother checking emails. That's too slow for them.
Wow.
So if we want to reach them, we really have to do either the Facebook thing or the instant messaging, because emails just takes too long.
Wow, we've come a long way, haven't we? Yeah. Don't, whatever you do, don't send it by Pony Express. You know, that won't work at all. Well, that Pew study that I was talking about to kind of start things off, and I'm going to get my numbers right here. The Pew study actually found that the best predictor of people remaining with the Catholic Church is Mass attendance and actually going to Mass on a regular basis during their childhood and during their teen years. Found that those folks tended to stay with the church for longer. Well, Sister Marianne Walsh, who's the director of the Office of Media Relations with the Bishops' Conference, wrote an article that says that the challenge for the church is really to keep Mass interesting and make it more attractive. How do you think, Mike, the church can go about doing that?
Number one, the thing that people always ask for is a strong welcome, good music. We could debate all day what we mean by good music, but I mean, it can't be, just horrible, people banging on the organ and flat notes. I mean, it has to be at least somewhat alive to at least continue with people's, to get people's interest. And then two, I think the other thing is a real relevant sense of homilies. That homilies aren't diatribes against modern society, because that's where young people are spending all their time. So if you're telling them that this isn't a place that they could spend all their time, they're like, well, what do I do now? Yeah. How does the church make themselves appear to be a vital part of the world in which they live in? And how can they translate the wisdom of the church into a way that makes sense to them in ways that they can integrate it into their everyday life? I mean, I think that's what we try to do at BustedHalo.com, is just we take things that are going on in everyday life and then we say, church, everyday life, not so far apart. Here's where the message really is.
There you go, and here's what can maybe link the two together.
Correct.
Well, Marilyn, I know that you are very involved in a lot of things going on, especially, you were just telling me earlier about World Youth Day, and you went to Sydney, I believe, last year, and we're very involved in that. Do you think that World Youth Day is really reaching out to youth? How big of a tool is that really right now to reaching youth and keeping them involved in church?
Well, World Youth Day is a wonderful thing if used properly, like any tool. The preparation before going there, and I think even more importantly is when we come home, what we do with it. Otherwise it just becomes a really nice memory. It was a really nice vacation. Every once in a while I'll share my pictures with you, but it doesn't really translate into a faith experience, which is at the heart of everything that we do. Even on a diocesan level, when we do gather things for young adults or adolescents, it doesn't really have any value unless those young people can then bring home something to their parishes, to their domestic church, or to their school. So it really is the challenge of those of us who help to organize those trips is what do we do to ensure that that experience continues being translated back home, whether it be through continued communication, regatherings here, encouragement, offering of other workshops or other experiences now that we're back home on home turf, so that experience doesn't just stay in the distant memory.
Youth Ministers Marilyn Santos and Mike Hayes there, and definitely some great insight on the lives of today's youth.
I thought it was shocking. Email is too slow. What's going on? I thought I was, doing the right thing, checking my email all the time. Apparently, I'm out of date.
You gotta do the Facebook thing. That's what everybody's saying. Or the Twitter, and just one sentence, I guess, is all you get. So.
Yeah, talking about generations, I think every generation is now every 5 years because they're onto something new.
The technology has progressed so fast.
Yeah.
Well, that is it for this edition of Currents. Remember, you can watch us online at www.netny.net. Thanks very much for watching. I'm Matt McClure.
And I'm Ty Hernandez. Have a great one.